Good evening, everybody. Prior to us logging into this Zoom meeting, the board met in closed executive session where our meeting was called to order, so we may begin. And tonight we begin with a special hearing on the 2019-2020 Annual District Report of Violence and Vandalism and Harassment, Intimidation, and Bullying. That presentation will be given by Mr. James Earl, and I'll turn it over to him now.
James, we have you on mute, so we need to.
There we go. All right. Thank you. Good evening, and thank you for giving me an opportunity to share the 2019-20 Violence and Vandalism Report. All public schools in the district are required to hold two public hearings each year to provide a repost to the Board of Education on all acts of violence and vandalism which occur in the school district. This hearing will be kept on file by the district, by the Board of Education. In addition, all schools in New Jersey are required to designate the first week of October as the week of respect and the third week in October as School Violence Awareness Week. And during these weeks, schools will provide activities and engage staff and students in activities related to those two topics. Let me begin by presenting the 2019-20 Violence and Vandalism Report for West Windsor-Plainsboro School District. I've included the 18-19 school year for your reference. And just let me, with a brief explanation regarding how the information is gathered, for every incident of violence or vandalism, substance abuse, or weapons that take place in our schools, we must report these incidents to the state using the Student Safety Data System, or SSDS for short. With that, I'd like to begin with our mission statement. Our mission statement focuses on empowering all learners to thoughtfully contribute to a diverse and changing world. That's our focus. I won't read the whole thing, but just so that you know, we begin every presentation with that mission. That's our focus when we're working through violence and vandalism and HIV and all the things that I'll report to you tonight. I'd like to share with you activities for the Week of Respect. So just see. For Dutch Neck, Tuesday, you can see, I won't read them all. I'll just highlight a few. Tuesday is Shine Bright and Choose Kindness, wear neon colors. For Maurice Hawk, I'll go through these fairly quickly, Dr. Adderhold. So Wednesday, October 7th, Team Up Against Bullying. Students wear a team uniform or team jersey or field day shirt to school. Friday for Maurice Hawk is October 9th, Hawk Togetherness Day. Students wear Hawk gear or school colors. As you know, Town Center and Wyckoff on the next slide are together, and they will continue with their Choose Kind theme. The students will be reminded to wear to Warm Fuzzy Day, which will be celebrated in September. On this day, they spread kindness through compliments, kind words, and random acts of kindness. This will continue to highlight these acts during the Week of Respect. Respect, kindness quotes will be shared during the morning meetings also. At Millstone River, on Tuesday, you can see they're going to put disrespectful behavior to bed. That's an activity where students will wear their favorite pajamas. On Wednesday, Tied Together by Kindness. Students will wear a tie or a scarf on Wednesday. In the middle schools, at CMS, on Tuesday and Wednesday, students and staff will utilize Flipgrid, a digital platform, to answer two questions. What does respect mean for you? What do you respect the most in your life? And then all of this information will be compiled into a big CMS video. On Thursday and Friday, they'll participate in virtual CMS Kindness Wall on Padlet. That's another virtual platform. As you can see, we're working to bring students who are all virtual into the work also, into this building the culture of respect. So they'll be writing and adding messages and pictures of kindness and love and support for one another on Padlet. At GMS, on Thursday and Friday, create Grover's Respect World Cloud. All students can enter responses on a Google form to create an artistic word cloud, which will be displayed during the following week following the week of respect. So this just gives you some ideas at the high school, both High School North and High School South. So at High School North in particular, Wednesday, Wellness Wednesday, just to highlight a couple of things there. Students are encouraged to participate in a wellness activity such as mindful breathing, mindful coloring, meditation, creating a glitter jar. On Thursday, Stand Up Against Bullying activity. You can read what that's all about, but several activities at High School North. And at High School South, introduction to the Week of Respect and Solidarity Week over morning announcements with daily challenges throughout the week. They'll offer introductions from the anti-bullying specialist, that's the ABS's role, and services too. They'll post on SAC and guidance classrooms with Padlet question and the prompt, what does kindness matter? So lots of, and I went through those fairly quick, but this will be posted for you to see and read. These are great opportunities and many more that are taking place in our schools. So this is a great opportunity for students and staff to be engaged. Next, I'd like to read to you the definition of HIB. It's any gesture, any written, verbal, or physical act, or any electronic communication, whether it be a single incident or a series of incidents that is reasonably perceived as being motivated by any actual or perceived characteristics such as race, color, religion, ancestry, national origin, gender, sexual orientation, gender identity, and expression, or a mental, physical, or sensory, handicapped in parentheses, disability, or by any other distinguishing characteristic. And that one's important. That takes place on school property at any school-sponsored function or on school bus or off school grounds as provided in the section 16 of P.L. 2010, chapter 122. And the key to this that substantially disrupts or interferes with the orderly operation of the school or rights of other students. So those are the areas that when we open an investigation, those are the things we're looking for when we talk about characteristics. And then by any other distinguishing characteristic means that we could perceive anything else in this that makes sense that someone might have an HIB investigation open for at that time. So, Dr. Adderall. So what I'd like to share with you is information about HIB investigations versus those founded. We do a comparison from 2018-19 to 2019-20, comparing September to December in both years. You can see we went up in investigations in December of 2019 as compared to 2018, but the founded HIBs slightly down, but about the same. We think reporting is better. We think that we've gotten, lots of training and our staff's really sharing the information, and we're not guessing on anything. We're taking the investigations, we're getting out there, making sure we're investigating in the schools to get the information. So you can see the investigations up, but I think our staff's doing a good job of working to find out whether the founded HIBs are valid. In January to June, if you see the two comparisons, you have 67. Now, we'll have a drop in the January to June in 2020 because we went all virtual in March. So you see a reduction in the number of HIV investigations because we weren't in person. However, you see 26 and 27, which might make you ask the question, why did confirmed HIBs or founded HIBs go up? Well, you know, when we go virtual, there's a lot of electronic communication, and I know we were involved a good bit in, you know, things such as a threat. You get someone writing something, they may be unsure about the statements they make, but it causes us to investigate. And in some cases, those are found. So that could be a reason. We're going to investigate more to see where the gaps are. And certainly, we're going to continue the work that we're doing to close those gaps in terms of working with students on how to properly communicate electronically or away from school when they're not in school, and even if we're virtual. Patterns and trends that we see, investigations, confirmed HIBs are down, and a lot due to going virtual. High school investigations, we had a lot more of those. Unstructured activities, as always, like being on buses and at recess and different places like that, while they're supervised, a bit less structured than in the classroom. Minimally supervised settings, kind of similar to unstructured activities, and other distinguishing characteristics, meaning that that category that I mentioned earlier, where it might not be race, religion, or something so easy to identify, we had to work and find that characteristic that it may have related to. So what you see here is count of incidents by reporting category. And, you know, like when you look at violence, that could be an assault, fight, kidnapping, robbery, sexual assault, sexual contact, simple threat, criminal threat. Those are things that go under violence. Vandalism is just, you know, destruction of property. Weapons could be anything from, you know, a real weapon, or it could be someone threw a pencil and caused harm to someone else. So these categories are just by those numbers alone. You have to dig deeper in the data to determine exactly what those were. But you can see that number should actually be in 1966. So I didn't get that changed. It should be 66 in 1819, 53 in 2020 for HIVs. But you can see 27. We talked about why that might still be the case. And then we're down in other areas. So 6 in vandalism, weapons 3, substance abuse 9. And we know that a good bit of this is due to the fact that we're not in school, and in some cases not able to manage these things. These are being managed at home in many cases, if they happen at all. Incident category by totals or by schools. You can see the high school. We just have the high school and middle school levels. You can see, you know, in terms of violence, and remember that could be a simple push. That could be so. For middle schoolers, it may be age appropriate to engage in some of these things that we have to investigate and eventually determine if there are consequences or reporting responsibilities. So you have 15 in middle schools, 8 with vandalism. You have 2 in middle schools and 4 in high schools with weapons. 2 in, you know, you can read the chart. I just wanted to give you a sense of how that breaks down in the 2 upper in the 612 environment. So we have activities in the 3rd week of October is Violence Awareness Week. So this is, in this week, I just wanted to show you some activities, and I'll just highlight one each. At Town Center, you have guidance lessons on respect, acceptance, empathy during the month of October. At Maurice Hawk, they're hosting the Bagel and Books with staff and parents, themes such as acceptance, diversity, respect, and friendship. At Dutch Neck, the school counselor will teach conflict resolution and problem-solving skills during classrooms, in their classrooms. This will include reminders to use debug strategies that that Dutch Neck students use to solve problems peacefully with friends. Village, the counselor will teach conflict resolution and problem solving skills. At Millstone River, establishment of group work focusing on managing stress and identifying various strategies to cope with uncomfortable feelings. And at CMS during the week, students and staff will be able to contribute to the CMS Panthers for Peace Padlet. Again, Padlet shows up where kids and staff can put information electronically out that everyone can see and respond to. So it's really neat. At GMS, positivity is contagious. A message board, students will write positive messages on paw prints for display on a bulletin board. And at High School South, you have AM quotes. On Tuesday, nonviolence is a permanent attitude we bring to the breakfast table and bring to the bed at night. Coretta Scott King. So when they give their quotes, they're quoting, you can see the list there, quoting individuals, and gives, the opportunity for high school students to think, and in some cases maybe write and respond. At High School North, one of the features is peer group discussions and how to recognize when someone is being mistreated. So very interesting work at all the schools during Violence Awareness Week. Proactive programs with the district. So school counseling and anti-bullying specialists. Our counseling curriculum continues. We have student assistance counselors at the 612 level who support students with substance awareness, substance and alcohol and drug abuse awareness, and substance support if needed. Assembly programs, peer leaders, character education programs, Rutgers University Behavioral Health Care Specialists, and many other clubs and activities will be promoting programs about aspects of students' social and emotional development. And as you know, we recently hired our Diversity, Equity, and Inclusivity Coordinator, Mr. Anthony Jones. He's been with us now for a couple of weeks, and some of the things we've been focused on, which are really neat, and he's been able to get a different view of what's happening in schools. So he's out doing an equity audit. That's an opportunity to just get into schools, talk to principals, talk to students, talk to different organizations in schools, get a sense of what's happening. And that way, when we come together, we'll know what's happening in all 10 schools and how we might be able to close gaps and build support. One of the areas of focus in that audit is to see if we have student advocacy programs in place. While we know they exist, we're looking for appropriate level student advocacy support in all 10 buildings. And where we don't see it, if there are gaps, it's going to be our goal and our job to support schools to add those. Creating safe spaces. Dr. Adderhold and I had an opportunity to meet with numerous students and families and alumni, and that came up about who do you talk to when you're concerned about an issue surrounding diversity, equity, and inclusivity. Is there a safe place to go? And in some spaces that was evident, and in others we had questions. So we want to make sure that as we investigate through Mr. Jones's work and our continued work, that we are creating those safe spaces and supporting students who have a concern or an idea that can help build a culture in a school of acceptance and belonging is what we want to see. Data analysis, we started that journey during my 2 years here, and I think prior to my time coming here, and we looked at discipline data, we looked at course access data, we looked at several different types of data. We're going to look at some qualitative data around how students are feeling about the culture in their school. So this is just an opportunity as he begins his work to determine what will we look at to measure early in a year and then to measure later in a year to see how we're progressing as we implement and reorganize the work that we're doing. And then diversity, equity, and inclusivity communication. He's already meeting with our Director of Communications to talk about how we can communicate what we're doing in diversity, equity, and inclusivity. We've done tons of work in the last, my 2 years here, and of course, years prior to my coming. And we want to make sure that our families know, our students know, and if there's an opportunity for responses there. So that's the presentation. Let me know if you have any questions.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Earl. It doesn't look like there's any questions from the board. So at this point, it's time for a special opportunity for public comment just on the report that Mr. Earl presented. But before we start with that and I read the statement about that, I'm going to actually turn it over to our board attorney, Mark Toscano, because since our last meeting, there have been some changes to what public entities need to do to comply with the law relative to public participation. And I will let our attorney explain that to everyone.
Thank you, Madam President. So back in March, when the world seemed to stop, the legislature and the governor took action to amend the Open Public Meetings Act in order to allow public bodies to conduct meetings virtually. Much like this meeting tonight. In doing so, the law provided that the Division of Consumer Affairs was charged and expected to issue regulations that would help facilitate the running of those meetings. The law was signed on March 22nd. The day after that, the Division of Community Affairs promptly issued a guidance document. And that guidance document is what the Board of Education and candidly every other public body in the state has been following for the last 6 months because that was the only guidance that was received. Within the last week or so, the Division of Community Affairs has decided that now is the time to issue those regulations 6 months later. We have received those regulations. We are making changes, as will every public body that meets in the state of New Jersey in this virtual format, or very candidly, in an in-person format. There will be some modifications and changes that will have to be implemented. For tonight's meeting, one of the changes that has been implemented is in the first, the advertisement for the meeting. If you saw that, you would have noticed that there was instructions on how to make public comment. That is a requirement. In addition, during public comment period, the public for a virtual meeting must be afforded the opportunity to submit any written comments in advance of the meeting, as well as, if they so choose, to make public comments in the same format, virtual platform that the members of the public body are using. So for instance, tonight, you see all of us on the screen here tonight, we are using audio and video. Anybody that would like to make public comment does have the option to do that. In making these changes, we tried to keep everything as consistent as we could so that members of the public that have been attending the board's meetings virtual meetings over the last 6 months did not see everything kind of change overnight. So we have implemented those changes here tonight. We may have little kinks. We're gonna work through them, but the board is substantially compliant with these new requirements. And again, if you attend other public meetings, you will start to see these changes being implemented by the other public bodies as well.
Thank you very much, Mr. Toscano. So with that, I will read the new statement. The board invites thoughts and reactions from members of our community on the 2019-2020 Annual District Report on Violence and Vandalism and Harassment, Intimidation, and Bullying, who submitted written comments to the board secretary prior to the submission deadline for this meeting, and from those who have signed up on the form to comment via video and/or audio that was open and available on the district website up until the start of this special opportunity for public comment. Any written comments that were submitted prior to the deadline for this meeting will be read aloud by the board attorney for 3 minutes in accordance with board policy 0167. Members of the public who did not submit written comments and who have signed up will be offered the opportunity to make their comments via video and/or audio. Members of the public will not be permitted to submit both written comments and make additional comments via video and/or audio. Each comment should be directed to the presiding officer, not individual members of the board, and must be made in accordance with the procedures and 3-minute time limit set forth in Board Policy 0167. If the comment extends beyond 3 minutes, speakers will be asked to conclude their comments and may be muted by the moderator. Once an individual has finished their comment or their 3 minutes has expired, their audio and video will be turned off by the moderator. This public comment period shall be limited to 15 minutes, which is about as long as it took me to read that statement. So this time is just for comments relative to the Violence and Vandalism and Harassment, Intimidation, and Bullying report presented by Mr. Earl.
Madam President, I was checking. I did not. Oh,
Yep.
I did not see anybody on the list, and there was no written comments submitted for this public comment period.
That's correct.
Okay, so there are no written or audio requests for comment on the report. Okay,
Right.
so with that then, we will close the public comment period, and I need a motion, please, to approve the report presented by Mr. Earl, the 2019-2020 Annual District Report of Violence and Vandalism and Harassment, Intimidation, and Bullying. Can I please get a motion on that? Rachel and Dana. Are there any questions or comments? Thank you. Chris?
Okay, we'll start with Mr. Chang.
Yes.
Mr. Flores.
Yes.
Ms. Ho.
Yes.
Ms. Krug.
Yes.
Ms. McCune.
Yes.
Mr. Whitfield.
Yes.
Ms. Zovich.
Yes.
Ms. Juliana.
Yes.
And Ms. Keish.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. So that will close our special hearing, and now we'll start with our regularly scheduled public meeting. Sorry, Dr. Adel, do you have any comments at this time?
Thank you, Ms. Case. Just a couple brief comments. Again, thank you to the members of our community, members of our staff, members of our administration for all the work that they're doing to keep our students and each other safe. As many of you saw yesterday, we did have a positive case of a student at Grover. I just wanted to talk a little bit about contact tracing and the way in which contact tracing occurs, because as we're all learning through the process, it does sometimes raise questions. So not every case is the same, and so it does require a lot of sort of trust in the health care support that we're receiving. And again, I just give tremendous credit to Jill Swanson and her team over in West Windsor. The health department, they've just been tremendous partners throughout. Jill is a go-to contact day or night, weekend, early morning, late night, just a tremendous resource for the district and a true partner. And we are growing our relationship with Middlesex County Health Department, just a very different structure over in Middlesex County. So we're working with them more and more and thank them for their support. So when cases come in or suspected cases come in, the real question that the district needs to answer is was social distancing and time honored? So it is the rule of 6 by 10 or 6 and 10, 6 feet, 10 minutes. And then you add another factor of 48 hours from the time period of symptoms. So if we are following our social distancing rules and we are maintaining distance from one another, and we are ensuring that we're not walking in proximity for any length of time longer than 10 minutes. And we're practicing good hand washing and mask wearing and all the different components that we've put in place. And we're honoring our temp checks and health screening forms, and we're ensuring that we're not coming to school sick and with symptoms. Most likely, if we're following those practices, it is very possible, like yesterday, that we are not going to contact trace and find close contacts. Close contacts, though, do exist at times. And in yesterday's example, close contacts happened in weekend engagements. And where different rules were followed than what we're following in the school. And those are family and community choices that sometimes have repercussions within the district. So again, we're just asking everyone to be cognizant of the ripple impacts that could happen as a result of weekend and evening engagements outside of the school day. I'm tremendously proud of our staff and our students for the work that they're doing to keep one another safe, to honor the rules. And we were fortunate to yesterday that there was no transportation by bus, and there was podding in the middle schools with limited movement between classrooms. And as a result, contact tracing became easier because we had a narrower scope, and our staff had good understanding of seating charts and proximities and understanding of the work that they did. And our staff was able to quickly ascertain that there was no close contacts within their classrooms. They felt comfortable. The family was very forthcoming with other contacts. And again, the system worked. So that's a great example of how the system can work well. And so I just ask everyone to keep honoring the process and the protocols that are put in place. Understand in a prior communication, I said that masks don't matter with respect to this. And that what I mean by that is you have to wear a mask. Masks absolutely do matter. Masks prevent the spread. Masks do help prohibit other individuals from getting sick. And it's a way to honor one another and to make sure that we're doing our part. That being said, when the health department talks about social distancing and contact tracing, just because you're wearing a mask doesn't mean you can then step within 6 feet for 10 minutes. Mask wearing in that sense does not allow you and give you a special right to go into closer proximity. So really what we follow is, again, the 3 rules: 6 feet, 10 minutes, 48 hours from the onset of symptoms. And so again, we have our nurses, administration, members of our staff that are certified contact tracers, a tremendous amount of volunteers that went through the contact tracing protocols through Johns Hopkins this summer, as well as staff members that also went through and were paid as a professional development component, because we want to ensure that we had contact tracing, contact tracers on staff. And again, the system worked yesterday. And the only caveat I will answer or speak to is that sometimes someone might come in and say, well, the facts didn't make sense. What you put out didn't make sense. And sometimes we're going to have to be very cognizant that there's certain things we can't speak to with respect to personnel privacy rights of families and of individuals. But there's lots of reasons. I'll just speak to it this way. There's lots of reasons that an individual might get a COVID test. Not all reasons are because someone is symptomatic. If you are traveling to certain states for a family trip, if you're traveling to maybe a family wedding, if you're going to certain types of appointments, many times you need to show a negative COVID test before you can proceed with an event. So someone could potentially, an adult, a student, a family member, could be in a school, in their workplace, not believe themselves to be symptomatic, not feel symptomatic, yet test positive on a proactive test. So in yesterday's scenario, it's possible that we had a student in school that for no understanding or underlying cause may not have did not present symptoms for a reason which they would have checked off a health screening form. And so those kind of situations are just going to unfold as we're working through process. And every situation is different, and every situation is vetted, honored, and we're working extremely hard to make sure that we're upholding the safety of our students, your children, and our staff. So just please know that we're trying to be transparent through this process, because we also know that it would raise lots of anxiety and lots of angst if we didn't notify the community and someone learned that there was a positive case. But at the same time, we can't always tell you all the facts that you may want to make you feel as good as you may want, because there's just privacy rights that are in place. So with that, I'm going to turn it back to Ms. Case, but before I do, I just want to welcome our 3 student reps, and it's so nice to see students on the call, and thank you for taking the time to be here. Sorry you had to be here for the special hearing before you go.
Thank you, Dr. Adhold. I was going to say the same exact thing. It is just so wonderful to see our high school representatives at our meeting tonight. So welcome. We're happy that you're here, and we can't wait to hear what you have to say about what's going on. So why don't we begin tonight with our high school North representatives?
Yeah, I'd be happy to start off. So first of all, I'd like to introduce myself. So my name is Allison Wu. I'm a junior this year, and I'm the BOE for High School North, well, one of them. We also have Eddie here today. And real quick, I'm just going to give a rundown of kind of what's going on at school. So that means like events and clubs. Before I do that, I also want to talk about something that Mr. Earl actually already mentioned. So this week is the week of respect. And so today is actually the Act of Kindness Day, which encourages everyone in the district to kind of do something nice for someone else, which I think is a really great message to put out there. And then yesterday, hopefully you saw lots of high schoolers and, you know, parents, staff repping blue to show their solidarity against cyberbullying. Okay, and then jumping into club stuff. This is actually also kind of going off of what Mr. Earl had talked about earlier, but we do actually have 2 new clubs whose values kind of align with the diversity, equity, and inclusivity staff within our schools now. And those 2 clubs are the Black Student Union, also known as Shades, and the POC Advocacy Group, which hopefully you guys will be working with in future as well. And then we have our conference-based clubs. Those guys are kind of moving over to a virtual format, obviously, because we can't do them in person this year. And so that's kind of starting up. We have MedForum with their HOSA competition coming up in the winter, so doing tryouts for that. And of course, we have our famous debate clubs like NU and MC starting their mocks in the coming weeks as well. And as for student council, we're doing some cool stuff as well. We have the virtual homecoming court in the works. And this year we're doing something a little bit different than we usually stick to. Instead of like that traditional format where we have like one guy and one girl paired together as the winner, we're gonna try to do something more inclusive this year. So that's something to look forward to. And also we're looking to put up our bulletin boards in the hallway again. If you've been in the school, you probably see it's kind of there in the hallway. So we're trying to get those up in the next coming weeks. Of course, we'll be socially distancing and following all those guidelines as well. And then lastly, just wanted to mention, although this isn't as fun for the students, we do have our PSAT coming up on October 14th, which is next Thursday, and those will be in school. I think that's all I wanted to talk about today, so I'm gonna go ahead and bring it over to our other BOE rep for North.
Hello, everyone. My name is Edward Lee, and I'm the second BOE representative for High School North. So today I wanted to talk about my hybrid and virtual instruction experience. So as a student who's gone through both variations of instruction over the past few weeks, I've noticed that both learning models have their own pros and cons, which I wanted to share with you guys. So initially I chose hybrid instruction because I believe that in-person learning would allow me to develop better and deeper connections with my teachers, and it would also obviously allow me to resume a somewhat familiar version of school. So as the first week of school passed by, I've gotten to know a lot of my teachers and students in each of the classes, which was very nice. However, I soon began to realize that I was actually one of the only 2 or 3 students in the classroom for each class, which was actually very surprising to me. So as the first 2 weeks of school passed by, I've gotten to experience both hybrid and virtual, and I've actually noticed that they were very similar. So for this exact reason, I actually ended up switching to virtual the 3rd week of school because I felt like it was the right model for me as it was suitable to my studying and learning habits. I also found that another benefit to virtual learning was that it provided a more comfortable environment. For example, I was able to use the breaks in between classes to be able to relax for a little while or to catch up on breakfast if I accidentally overslept. So overall, I definitely did enjoy in-person learning, but I did find virtual learning to be more suitable for me and my needs. And given that junior year is a very stressful school year for high school students, I was very nervous going to school, especially during these unprecedented times. However, as summer slowly transitioned into school, I felt that the overall process was definitely very smooth because the school community and teachers as a whole, they were all very understanding and compassionate. So thank you.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, High School North. Now I'll turn it over to our High School South rep.
Good evening, everyone. It's great to be here. My name is Sakis Subramanian. I'm a senior at South, and I'm the BOE representative for High School South. So first off, with current events, Back to School Night at South is this Thursday, October 8th. It'll be hosted on Flipgrid, where teachers will upload short videos of themselves describing their classes and how the year is going. For anyone unfamiliar with Flipgrid, it's an app as well as a website where a bunch of videos can be posted within a forum for easy viewing. Teachers have used it in the past to ask a question, and then students have responded in a video format. The Back to School Night Flipgrid will be a collection of teacher videos discussing their classes. South Student Council store will also be on the action. We've been open via Google Forms, sent out to students in their classrooms, but we'll also have a Flipgrid posted showcasing our merchandise for sale. We sell masks, hoodies, shirts, sweatpants, sunglasses, water bottles, and many more. For all the pirate parents watching, this is a great way to show pirate pride and help support the many events the Student Council holds now and in the future. Speaking of those events, we will be putting on a virtual club fair, which is also on Flipgrid for students to attend. Many clubs have already begun, but don't fear, as they're all very welcoming of new members. Right now, we have no concrete date for the club fair, but further details will be passed on directly to students as we get more submissions from clubs and it starts to come together. There's also plenty of club tryouts for a myriad of clubs like MUN, which is this Saturday, and many more in the weeks to come. On to homecoming. This year, it will be 2 weeks to accommodate both flights of hybrid students, obviously. Our homecoming court has been named the captain's crew. That was an interesting brainstorming session. In terms of the captain's crew, although there will be no king or queen as in the traditional model, we're currently experimenting with different ways to digitally host a live showcase of members of the crew, of course, all within safe social distancing guidelines. We've also been working with South School Administration and the fire department to find safe ways to decorate this year. Again, this is another issue where we'll pass more information on to students and parents as we know more. So I brought up a lot of issues and events to iron out. So to draw more ideas for how we can solve these problems from students and to hear from them directly, we're hosting Student Council town halls for the first time, where students can directly voice their opinions on homecoming, Spirit Weeks, and many other events. One of the issues we've had in the past is there's simply a lack of dialogue between our student council and the student body. Some decisions get made and a lot of students aren't entirely sure where they came from. We try to talk to as many students as we can, but obviously there's a lot of passionate students who don't get their voices heard. So to solve that problem, this year we're having student council town hall. So it would function somewhat like a BOE meeting where we'd have a bunch of students on, obviously, and then for some of them, we'd set the agenda. Like for this first one, it's going to be about homecoming, Spirit Weeks, and other events. And in the future, we'd like to send out forms where students themselves can propose topics and discuss issues they'd like to see solved within the school community. I know there's a lot of students really passionate about diversity and inclusivity, like Mr. Earl was talking about. And there's a lot of POC advocacy groups within school who we definitely love to work with. So if there's anybody out there, please reach out to us. This is ultimately to the benefit of the student body as well as the student council. So to any pirate parents out there, please urge your kids to participate, and we'd love to hear their ideas. That's all I have. So thank you all for your time.
Thank you so much to our student representatives. That was fantastic. I appreciate the time that you gave to your reports and for filling us in on everything that's going on in your schools. We'll look forward to hearing from you every month. Thank you so much for being here tonight. That brings us to our first opportunity for public comment. The board invites thoughts and reactions on agenda items and items of concern from members of our community who submitted written comments to the board secretary prior to the submission deadline for this meeting, and from those who have signed up on the form to comment via video and/or audio that was open and available on the district website until the start of this first opportunity for public comment. Any written comments that were submitted prior to the deadline for this meeting will be read aloud by the board attorney, for 3 minutes in accordance with Board Policy 0167. Members of the public who did not submit written comment and who have signed up will be offered the opportunity to make their comments via video or audio. Members of the public will not be permitted to submit both written comments and make additional comments via video and/or audio. Each comment should be directed to the presiding officer, not individual members of the board, and must be made in accordance with the procedures and the 3-minute time limit set forth in Board Policy 0167. If the comment extends beyond 3 minutes, speakers will be asked to conclude their comments and may be muted by the moderator. Once an individual has finished their comment or their 3 minutes has expired, their audio and video will be turned off by the moderator. This public comment period shall be limited to 60 minutes.
So, Madam President, we do have one written comment that was submitted in advance, and we do have someone that has signed up to speak. So I believe the process that we were going to follow is in order to forward as much time as possible for people that wanted to speak at the meeting would be to take those that wanted to speak first and then do written comments after that. So the first person that we have signed up is Sonia Gawas.
And I will move Sonia from attendee to panelist. And when she's done with her comment, I'll move her back to attendee, just so everyone understands what's going on. So I made the request, so I believe Sonia has to accept it. There she is.
Okay.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for allowing us the opportunity to speak to you directly after being off for months. I just wanted to take this opportunity to commend everybody at doing a fabulous job of opening the school. Both my kids are in hybrid, and they are enjoying every single second of it, even though it's a short day, but their energy level is definitely a positive one, more than the weeks that they're all virtual. I just wanted to mention something that I have noticed and I was curious about was the transportation. I see that my son, who is a 6th grader at Community Middle School, has only 2 students on the bus, including himself. And my daughter, who's a 5th grader at Millstone River, has only 5 students, including herself, on the bus. So I was just curious to see, was that, are we keeping all the bus transportation routes the same as the normal years, or to just make it simple, or is there a way to consolidate those so we could probably save some on budget? I'm not sure why those decisions were made, because I know the idea was to have 11 children, no more than 11 students on a bus. But I'm noticing there's only 2 students here, 5 students there. I've heard the same story in other communities as well, where there are very minimal students on the bus. So I'm just curious to see how we could consolidate those for budget purposes. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that comment. Mr. Toscano, are you going to read the one written comment that was submitted now?
Yes, Madam President. I just wanted to check, make sure there's nobody else on the list.
Thank you.
Okay, there was not. Okay. I just wanted to afford that opportunity. So the one written comment that was submitted in advance of the meeting comes from Christine Hodges, 18 Zazat Farm, Princeton Junction. It reads, when Governor Murphy opened up the schools, he had benchmarks the state had to hit. What are the requirements that will determine when WWP students can be full-time in person if they so choose? We know what the parameters are to shut down, but what is the plan for our district to move forward? How many students switched from the hybrid to virtual since the first day of school in high school, middle school, and elementary school? Did the district ask why the students switched? What changes have been made to the hybrid model to make it a better experience for those students in school? Why can't the hybrid students go each week if they only have 2 to 5 people in each class? Governor Murphy allowed sports to resume in July, yet WWP opted out of participating. What are the guidelines WWP has in place for sports to resume? Thank you. That's all, Madam President.
Thank you. So that will close our first opportunity for public comment. Dr. Adderhold, would you like to respond to any of those comments?
Sure. With respect to transportation, it's a fair question, and I know it's one that could seem a little disconcerting if you see buses rolling in with 2 or 4 or 10 students on, sometimes one, sometimes none. And so that goes to two components. One is bus runs had to be created with a maximum of 11 students on the bus. And you might recall back in July when we asked parents to make a selection into those choices of being virtual versus hybrid. We then, it was by, I think, July 26th, 27th, those were locked in. And then from that time period, at that point, we had to build our master schedule, our schedule for each building, for each section, as well as working through all the accommodation and leave requests and try to find a match. And so that work was done, a real credit to our leadership team and for the work that they did, especially a very difficult August for all of them. And that includes our transportation director. And so we had to work to make sure that we allowed a bus, but you might recall that we asked families to make affirmative selections out of transportation. And many families opted to continue the right to maintain transportation with the known uncertainty of a potential shift within their own schedule or with their own family needs. So as a result, we had to build bus runs by neighborhoods that included anyone who did not opt out of transportation. Right, so you have buses that are running sometimes with 0 students on them, and we are paying for a full bus with no one taking advantage of the bus on a daily basis for the possibility that a family might need the bus in a time period in which they might not be able to drive a child, inclement weather, whatnot. That is the family's right, and we do not have a right to tell them that they can't use the bus. So we're put into a position of building bus rosters of 11 because of social distances, distancing requirements set forth by the reopening plan in the CDC and the recommendations there. And we have to honor families' right to select. So while we are seeing, I would agree, some inefficiencies with respect to numbers on a bus, when you look at how many students are actually utilizing on a daily basis, when you look at the number of students that are assigned, it's not 2, 4, or 1, or 0. We are having buses built with the idea of 9 to 11 students on a bus so that we can accommodate transitions that may happen within a schedule. So that's some of the behind the scenes that's going into transportation. And it also speaks to the secondary piece that Ms. Hodges asked, which is how many changes. Since that late July, we've had 1,335 switches from hybrid to virtual. Right. At the same time, we've only had 60 or 62 as of today changes from virtual to hybrid. So 1,335. So we're over 70% virtual at this point. And then the answer to can you just move to in-person more frequently is a complicated question that requires a systems answer. And when we started looking across systems and looking across assignments and staffing, while it might look easy in some locations, it's not universally easy across the district. And so we are exploring our ability to have different models at different levels, but we also know that that could run into potential difficulties that may not work well with family groups, as well may not work well with the legalities of equity and equality with respect to some of our instructional programming. So it's not an easy answer, but we are having discussions about the model moving forward. But right now, the vast majority of our families have selected virtual. We're trying to work within accommodating the needs of families that want to be in person, the students that want to be in person, and we are looking at ways in which we could make some tweaks moving forward. Over the summer, you may recall that we asked families to make a first quarter selection, and so we are in current discussion around how we solicit some additional feedback from families if they are looking to make another change moving forward. We will most likely simply continue to try to work with families in the process that's established because we are working to try to meet family needs with respect to the moves to virtual. The moves back from virtual to hybrid is a little bit more complex because it does impact bus routes, it does impact class rosters, it does impact social distancing, and it could have impacts, especially at the K-5, to homerooms and the homeroom balances, especially at the K-5 level. and it could impact other programs such as ELL and special education programs with homeroom impacts, with pull-out and push-in classes. So we have to be mindful of the entirety of the program and not individual classes that might be easier to accommodate. So it's complex, but I do understand the ask. As far as criteria, right now the Department of Ed has issued limited discussion about what the next steps are, other than we have an opportunity to open. We are one of the only districts in Mercer County that has actually opened our doors to in-person instruction K-12. In fact, Hopewell and West Windsor-Plainsboro are the only two as of today that have opened our doors since September, since the beginning of September. Hamilton brings their kids in next week, and Robbinsville has been open K-5, and I know the other county schools are working to essentially phase in their program over the next several weeks. Some districts won't be there until in November. We made the decision to open up with hybrid immediately at the beginning. We felt we were prepared from a PPE perspective, from a training perspective, from a process perspective, and we believe the students need to be in school as early as possible, with the concern that we could be moving towards closure before too long. And as we see rising case numbers, I still have major concerns about the duration in which we'll be in person. We're at 1.6 rate of transmission today. We are at 1.27 yesterday. We crested 960 cases on Saturday. We're in the 600s today. Granted, some in this area are lower than in what we're seeing in Ocean and Monmouth, but this is a virus that does not know boundaries. And so we have to be very vigilant if we're to stay and remain open. So I would just caution that before too long, if we're not cognizant of health and safety, we could be in a very difficult position. So we need to stay the course as a community and honor our social distancing requirements to maintain the schools open for our kids. And there's certain populations of students that need us and need us to stay open. And so we're working our tails off to try to make sure that happens. With respect to athletics, I'll defer to the NJSIA. I look forward to seeing their guidelines for winter season. At this point, as of October 6th, there's no written guidelines that I am aware of that the NJSIA has issued. And other than that, yesterday they were polling all athletic directors to find out the mass number of closures and cancellations that are occurring throughout the state, including this past weekend's 47 cancellations and or postponements or reschedules of varsity football games due to COVID. So there are numerous challenges across the state, and it's very difficult to see any one media source that's tracking this because there is no database that school districts are supposed to report to on a daily basis. You may hear that the Department of Health has issued a COVID calculator or COVID dashboard for schools, but that is only for school-based outbreaks that are directly linked to in-school transmissions. If there is a transmission that occurs due to a close contact or a quarantining or a closure due to something that happens not inside the school, or that could be from the school but is not being directly proven to be a transmission that occurred in the school, it's not necessarily showing itself in that data. So we have to be very mindful that the data doesn't necessarily represent the issue at hand.
Thank you, Dr. Adderhold. That brings us to the voting portion of our agenda. We begin, please, can I get a motion on administration items? No, first I'm going to make a correction. We're going to be voting on the administration items. On number 2, I need, in addition to what's listed on the agenda for HIB cases, I need you to please add in case number 219852-HSN-0921-2020. So with administration items 1 through 5, with that correction on item number 2, could I please get a motion? Tony and Robin. Are there any questions or comments on the administration items? Thank you, Chris.
Okay, can we start with Mr. Flores?
Yes.
Ms. Ho?
Yes.
Ms. Krug?
Yes.
Ms. McCune?
Yes.
Mr. Whitfield?
Yes.
Ms. Zovich?
Yes.
Mr. Chang?
Yes.
Ms. Juliana?
Yes.
Ms. Keish?
Yes. I have no curriculum and instruction items this evening, so can I please get a motion on the finance items 1 to 6? Louisa and Isaac. Are there any comments or questions on the finance items? Thank you, Chris.
Okay, we'll start with Ms. Ho,
Yes.
Ms. Krug,
Yes.
Ms. McCune,
Yes.
Mr. Whitfield,
Yes.
Ms. Zovich,
Yes.
Mr. Chang,
Yes.
Mr. Flares,
Yes.
Ms. Juliana,
Yes.
Ms. Keish.
Yes. Could I please get a motion on personnel items 1 and 2 plus the personnel addendum? Martin and Graylin. Are there any questions or comments on the personnel items? Thank you, Chris.
Okay, we'll start with Ms. Krug,
Yes.
Ms. McCune,
Yes.
Mr. Whitfield,
Yes.
Ms. Zovich,
Yes.
Mr. Chang,
Yes.
Mr. Flares,
Yes.
Ms. Ho,
Yes.
Ms. Juliana,
Yes.
Ms. Keish.
Yes. In our votes just now, we voted to approve the retirement of Judith Ehrlich, who is a cafeteria aide, and she's retiring from Millstone River. She's retiring after 30 years with the district. That is a lot of kids that she watched over in 30 years as a cafeteria aide. So I just would like to thank her for taking care of our babies at lunchtime and wish her all the best in her retirement. Could I please get a motion to approve the board minutes from our September 22nd meeting, which would be the general meeting and the closed executive session? Isaac and Dana. Are there any questions or, nope, any questions or comments on the minutes? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed or abstentions? Do we have any liaison reports? Is there any new business? That brings us to the second opportunity for public comment. The board invites thoughts and reactions on agenda items and items of concern from members of our community who submitted written comments to the board secretary prior to the submission deadline for this meeting, and from those who have signed up on the form to comment via video and/or audio that was open and available on the district website up until the start of this second opportunity for public comment. Any written comments that were submitted prior to the deadline for this meeting will be read aloud by the board attorney for 3 minutes in accordance with board policy 0167. Members of the public who did not submit written comments and who have signed up will be offered the opportunity to make their comments via video and/or audio. Members of the public will not be permitted to submit both written comments and make additional comments via video and/or audio. Each comment should be directed to the presiding officer, not individual members of the board, and must be made in accordance with the procedures and 3-minute time limit set forth in board policy 0167. If the comment extends beyond 3 minutes, speakers will be asked to conclude their comments and may be muted by the moderator. Once an individual has finished their comment or their 3 minutes has expired, their audio and video will be turned off by the moderator. This public comment period shall be limited to 15 minutes. What do we got?
We had no written comments submitted in advance, Madam President, and we do have one name on the list for comment. It is Latoya Edwards.
Thank you.
And I'm just going to promote Latoya to the panelist.
Can you guys hear me? Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
we
Yes,
can
we
hear
can.
you.
Okay, good. All right, good evening. 'Cause I am not going on camera.
Okay.
And I couldn't find the form to do the written comment. For a quick comment, I just want to say on behalf of the African American Parent Support Group, we welcome Mr. Anthony Jones to the district as our new diversity, equity, and inclusivity officer. We look forward to working with him, the board, and all other organizations in the district to move West Windsor-Plainsboro forward in a new, hopefully enlightened direction, I'll say. Thank you, everyone. Good evening.
Thank you for your comment. So that will close the second opportunity for public comment. And that brings us to the end of our meeting. Can I please get a motion to adjourn? Robin and Rachel, all those in favor say aye.
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 We're adjourned. Thank you for coming out tonight, everybody. Stay safe.
Night, everyone.
Aye.